Well, here's a guy that I've had some great times with both on land and sea. Because we've had a well, first starting with the Def Leppard cruise, and then now he's been a regular on the Monsters of Rock cruise, showcasing his fantastic artwork. And we've had some good times on there, drinking some Frank Hannon or some Iron Maiden beer. Rick Allen of Def Leppard joins me live right now. Good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's nice to see you.
How has the last year for you been, man? Have you been I know your wife had some music that came out that you were involved in, so I know you were making some music with her, but overall, how's everything been for you the last year?
It was a little weird at first. The last in-person shows I did outside of Def Leppard were March of last year. I was in DC showing some art. And, I got home and everything just kind of shut down. And it was a strange time for me. And then, we started talking to some of our crew members and we started talking to, basically people in the industry in general. And we started to realize that there were real problems out there, and the ripple effect that went out into our industry, as you know, have been quite devastating. So Lauren came up with this idea for Big Love benefit concerts. I called a bunch of people, Tommy Shaw, Matt Sorum, Miles Kennedy, Billy Idol, and all these people came on board. We put the show together. All the proceeds went to Sweet Relief, and we just got word that that money was very well spent and went to people that really needed it. So not only that, I mean, it's given me the opportunity to paint a lot. And the fact that myself, Lauren, and my youngest daughter, we can do stuff together in the house. We can be creative in the house. We can either play music together or create art. So I know it's been devastating for a lot of people, but from a personal standpoint, it's actually been it's been a good break for me, and just to kind of regroup, tie up all those loose ends, and just stay creative and try and be useful and being of service. So some good has come out of it.
Do you play drums much, Rick, when you're not playing with Leopard? Do you knock around on your own kit at home? Are you one of those guys that likes to still keep playing, or do you prefer to focus on art and other stuff when you're not on tour?
So basically, let me just move. So there's the Ferrari in the corner. Can you?
Ah, all right. We're
That's
looking at
my,
Rick's kit right now on Zoom. Yeah.
and and then what I have is I have this acoustic setup. I don't know if you can see
Yeah, I
that.
see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have an acoustic setup here. The studio's a bit messy, excuse guys, but you know what? There's always something to do. There really is, and it keeps me sane. If I've got something to do here at home, then I'm good. It's if I didn't have all this stuff, then I'm not sure where my mind would go.
Well,
So
you talked about that before we came on the air. You actually said that you think about the mental aspects of this. I mean, you live in Los Angeles. You just mentioned your family's there. I'm lucky. I live, I have a couple homes and I've got my family. You think of the people, especially maybe throughout the last year in small one-bedroom apartments that live alone or something like that, that don't have a support around them. I mean, this has been tough on people on a variety of levels, I would think.
I think that was one of the main sort of that was the main how can I put it, inspiration for doing the Big Love benefit concert, was realizing that within our circles there'd been several suicides, and it just made us realize that some people were in a really bad place, and I think the emphasis on mental health has been something that really needs to be addressed. That friend that hasn't called in a while, or people that you normally hear from on text or whatever, and all of a sudden they drop off the radar. That's the time to pick up the phone and just go, "Hey, how's it going? You know, what's going on?" And you'd be surprised. Some people have really suffered through this thing, understandably. But I think it's the right time for the rest of us to just kind of step up and just check in on people. Just make sure we've got all the technology we could ever need. Just get on the phone or text somebody or just reach out. And that's basically what we've been doing.
Yeah, I've done that with a few friends as well that are in that situation, and it's good. You know, even during the height of the pandemic, I said, you know, the weather was nice one day. Come sit down. We'll stay 6 feet apart, whatever. We'll talk, just some face to face. I think it is important, and I think hopefully we're on the other side of all of it as things start to begin to open again. Now, there's a few things I want to talk to you about, including your art, but I want to go back to something you just mentioned. We looked at your drum kit. So for people now, you'll be able to see this on our app soon, but for people listening on the radio right now, Rick showed me his studio, and in it you had your electronic kit and an acoustic kit next to it. How does it feel for you to go back and forth as a player between the electronic and the acoustic? When you play acoustic drums again, you almost have to. I would imagine you have to reprogram yourself to some degree on what you can do and cannot do there versus what you apply when you sit at the electronic kit.
That's a good point you bring up. You know, as a kid, you know, like 9 or 10 years old, the thing that really inspired me was just being able to sit behind an acoustic drum set and it be, you know, immediate gratification. I didn't have to plug anything in. I didn't have to switch anything on. I didn't have to put, you know, anything in my ears other than, you know, maybe some earplugs. So the acoustic kit is basically in my DNA in a way where I just sit behind the thing and it just feels natural. It feels like, you know, I'm a kid again. Whereas, you know, the Ferrari, as I call it, which is, you know, it's basically designed to compete with very loud guitars in Def Leppard world. And that was a bit more of a learning curve. Having said that, you know, I used to be really right-footed, you know, as a kid. But then after my accident, it was really weird. What happened? A little bit, my left arm went to my right hand. It went to my right leg. It went to my left leg. So it's almost like the information was in my head, and it naturally just it was able to go to my other limbs, and now you know it feels so natural playing the electronic kit. You know it's almost like it was a natural response. You know there was something missing, so somewhere in you know in my head it was able to redirect that information,
Mm.
and it's so going between the two kits it's not really a big thing. You know, it's just kind of natural. It's like, you know, when I meet people that can play multiple instruments, you know, just be able to go from a guitar to a mandolin to a piano or sing or play drums or whatever. It amazes me that they can do that. But it's not so far-fetched, you know, when I compare the acoustic set to the electronic set. So good question, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're not going to be seeing you play any kits because it was just announced a couple days ago that once again the tour with Motley Crue and Poison and Joan Jett has been bumped another year to next June for June 2022, which of course that tour is of great interest to my audience. What do you know about the tour being pushed again, Rick? What did they tell you?
I knew that that was a possibility, but that news couldn't come from me. I think whether it's sports, whether it's music, whether it's theater, all of the promoters, it was their call. And I happen to think they made the right decision because I think the primary focus has got to be people's health and well-being. Um, so I understand why they made that decision. We're really bummed because obviously we wanted to get out there. It's been a long time, but I just hope, and I know, I mean, our fans are so loyal, I mean, it's incredible. I mean, the fact that we got, the largest vote for the Hall of Fame, fan vote. So our fans are just particularly special. I mean, they've always been a rock, So, I feel for them, and I feel for us. But I just want people to come out and be safe. And I think if we'd have gone out this year, it may have been a bit more of a patchwork of a tour as opposed to being able to play the whole thing from start to finish. So, it's a bummer, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is that, and that's what I kept telling the audience because they had been asking about it again leading into the last week. And the interesting thing is, we all know you're in LA, I'm in New Jersey, state by state, county by county. There are still some different rules, even though most things are open now. But yet trying to do all the dates to full capacity may have been a challenge. But what I was really surprised about, Rick, was today, Live Nation, the same promoter that was doing your tour, did announce a stadium tour with Green Day, Weezer, Fall Out Boy to go in almost the same buildings starting in July. So that really opened a lot of eyebrows that like, wow, they're actually putting a stadium tour out in the same buildings with a different group of bands. But I agree with you. As much as I think it's tough for you guys and the fans who want to see the tour so badly, the idea of, as much as it sucks to wait another year, to know that it can go without a hitch, hopefully, is the way to go. It's not surprising to me they pushed it.
No, me too. And I kind of knew it was coming because when I saw Rage Against the Machine, when I saw their tour get pushed, I was like, you know what? It's a bummer, but I think we're probably going to be next.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's a nice problem because the people that draw the bigger amounts of people, that just means because the smaller shows are going to happen seemingly with no problem, but the more people you draw, the more the challenge it is. So you got to move it down the line a little bit. One other thing before we talk about your art. So the Leopard guys, we know Joe is in Ireland. We know Phil and you and Phil are there in LA. Viv is either there or East Coast. Yep. Sav is in England. So everybody's kind of spread out. Have you been able to stay in touch with the guys? Obviously, beyond texting and Zoom and stuff, have you been able to come together at all? And have you talked about music or writing new music at all and done any of that?
Well, there's always new music on the go. And technology gives us that. It's not like we all have to be in the same room these days. So I'm just really excited for people to get to hear new music in the not too distant future. That would be really cool.
So have you guys recorded some stuff?
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing more shall be said for now. Is that the vibe I'm getting?
I'll let Joe tell you.
All right. Well, I'll definitely, we look forward to it, whatever it may be. Because I know you guys also did some great stuff online for the fans with the Def Leppard Vault that you were going in, putting all that stuff up online for people to see, right?
Well, that was another good thing that came out of COVID. We had all this memorabilia and stuff that was stuck in the lockup and has been sort of there for years and years and years. And, it was probably never going to see the light of day. And then we realized that this was a great opportunity just to, go in, have a spring clean and sort of, put everything in order. And some of the stuff that we found is just incredible. I mean, from day one, it really spans the history of the band. Stuff that people have never seen before, stuff that I forgot even existed. So it's fantastic that we can present that to people, and the response we're getting is fantastic.
Who in the band was the guy that kept the best archives? Like, is it Joe, the guy who has every tape, every concert flyer?
You hit it on the nose. I mean, I mean, Joe? I mean, you ask him one question and, basically you'd be sitting there doing nothing for the next hour.
All right. Well, I look forward to talking to him about new music coming soon and everything else. I'm sure we'll be getting into it soon enough. So let's
Cool.
talk about these art shows. This Thursday, Las Olas, Florida, 7 to 9. These are all at Wentworth Gallery. This Friday, the Seminole Hard Rock in Hollywood, Florida, which I've been to, an amazing place. They've got a hotel there, the shape of a guitar tower. It's incredible. And
Yeah,
then on Saturday in Boca at Boca Town Center Mall, that's 6 to 9 p.m. So a little run through Florida, Wentworth Gallery, showing your art. Talk about what pieces you're going to have on display. All of it is for sale. People can meet you. And there's also a charitable component, right?
yeah, there always is. I mean, my relationship with our wounded warriors has been pretty well documented for a while. I suffer from PTSD, and I also have a traumatic brain injury. And actually, that's another thing that's been really cool about COVID. It is I was able to address some of those issues. I do this thing what they call neurofeedback. So that's been it's been good to be able to just kind of take a break and really take care of my health. But yeah, in terms of the artwork, I ended up doing a really cool Kurt Cobain, which I think Kurt Cobain changed the face of music. Very, just that whole Seattle scene, particularly Kurt Cobain. It felt the same as when punk came around. The first time I heard the Sex Pistols for the first time, it just turned the music industry on its head. And I feel as though Kurt Cobain, did that. And all the Legends pieces, they're all about that. Like people that really inspired me or influenced me. And then I did a really cool Johnny Cash, the original Bad Boy, you know what I mean? And then, of course, very sad. And I'm sure it affected you and pretty much everybody that you know. I did a couple of Eddie Van Halen's. And I think the two pieces sold before I even finished them. But yeah, quick story. So 1978, my friend who lived up the street from where I grew up, Mark, he calls me and he says, I want you to come and listen to this record. Rotary dial, of course. And, I go up there and he plays me the first Van Halen album. And I was just completely blown away. I'd never heard guitar played like that in my entire life. It was like, oh my God, who are these guys? And I just fell in love. I fell in love with Van Halen. Fast forward a couple of months, they were coming through town. They were coming through the Sheffield City Hall with Black Sabbath. And Van Halen were opening for Black Sabbath. Now, Van Halen owned that show. They were so hungry and so good. It was incredible.
Same thing happened here in the U.S., Rick. And anybody that saw it said, no knock on Sabbath. Sabbath, the wheels were coming off. The drugs had set in. They were on their last gasp at that point. And then you had this firecracker in Van Halen. And the same thing happened in America. People who saw that talk about it all the time. They're like, it was not a fair fight. It was just...
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. I could see the disintegration of Sabbath, and I could see where it was going. But Van Halen were on fire, and they were just so hungry. It was fantastic. So I saw that show. I was totally inspired. They put the bar really high. I mean, for all of us. And then fast forward, I settled in Studio City in Los Angeles area in '91, and Steve Lukather from Toto happens to be my neighbor, and we get to know each other pretty good. Anyway, one night he calls me. He says we're having a get together. You should come and come and join us. I want to introduce to someone. I want to introduce to Eddie Van Halen. And I'm like, I'm there, I'm in, So I went and met up with him. I was pretty starstruck, I must admit, to have been looking up to Van Halen and Eddie for all that time. And anyway, I got to meet him. Very unassuming. You wouldn't think he did what he did for a living. And
Right.
Between him and Hendrix, they probably changed the way people play guitar forever.
No
Um,
doubt. I
so,
mean,
yeah.
that's where that's that, we did a lot obviously when Eddie tragically died. I did weeks on it, and that was the two things that came out of it. It's Hendrix, it's Eddie. Those are the guys that, I mean, sure, there's a million other great guitar players, we know that, but
Of
those are the
course.
two guys that were the like truly changed the game.
Oh, I mean, they inspired so many people, and it was a different way to play. It was, it was like they weren't necessarily influenced by anybody else. They just came out, and it was this new way of doing something. It was a game changer. So that was fantastic. So just getting to meet him, I wasn't friends with him, but there was this mutual respect, and it was good. It was good. So for me to pay homage to Eddie and his family, and obviously the millions of fans all over the planet, what better way to do that than to paint him? So that was my way of saying thank you to a legend.
Yeah, I'm looking at the piece online now. It's brilliant. I mean, it's great stuff. I want to go back to something you said real quickly about Kurt Cobain, which I think is interesting. So you clearly Nirvana and Kurt changed the face of music. We know that. But how did you feel about it at the time? Because a lot of the 80s based bands, even a band as big as your band, Def Leppard, all took it on the chin when that scene changed in 92. I mean, everyone reacted to it differently. For Def Leppard, you guys made the Slang record, which was a
That's
different
true.
a vibe and change influenced by that. But there were a lot of artists that had from the 80s who had resentment because when he came out, it changed the scene so abruptly. It sounds like you were more of a fan and weren't too bothered about it, or maybe you were at the time. How did you feel when that scene changed so on the dime so quickly, and suddenly Leopard, coming off of a couple records of over 10 million sold, were suddenly, oh, that's, now it's all about Nirvana. I mean, there was a lot of resentment from fans and certain bands at that time.
You're absolutely right. And we did, I believe it was an MTV show that we did, and Nirvana were on, and we were on, and we I must admit we felt a little bit kind of ridiculous. It was it seemed as though this raw, just untethered sound that they were creating. Um, it kind of made a mockery of what we were doing a little bit. And I think you quite rightly said, um, getting back to our roots and getting back to something that was raw, um, was really came in the form of slang, which when we initially put that record out, it wasn't very well received, but it was a creeper, and it's actually become a lot of people's favorite record, including mine. I love listening to that record, but it wasn't immediate. It wasn't right out of the gate.
Right.
It took people some time to warm to it. Um, but I think it was the right record to make at that time, and I think it was a direct result of Nirvana.
Yeah, there were a lot of bands that did that, and some to better effect than others. I mean, I like Slang as well, but you were far from the only artist that did an album reactionary to the change in music that was happening at the time. Most bands did, some to greater success than others, whether it was commercial success or not. But just when you look back on the record, I agree. And actually, for Leopard fans out there that are fans of Slang, few years ago, this super deluxe version of that record came out with a ton of extra content on it. So you had actually done a lot of different things around that time. It was really cool to hear and see that, like a 3 CD version that came out about 5 years ago of that.
I think it was a very cathartic sort of time for us, and it was a great way for us to look at the music that we were producing, and very experimental in many ways. But then in others, it was kind of going back to the beginning, and just kind of going, do we really need all those complex harmonies? let's do something that's a little more raw, something that's stripped down. And we actually rented a house in southern Spain, and we set up in the house. There were like, there's a drum kit in the living room, and there was like the control room was in the dining room, and it was pretty cool. I mean, and to all be living together and all spending time together like that, it was really taking us back to our roots. So I think it was good for the band.
So just in wrapping up here, Rick, the art gallery shows again in Florida. If you're in Florida, Thursday Las Olas, Friday Hollywood at the Hard Rock, Saturday Boca Town Center Hall, all at Wentworth Gallery, 7 to 9 in Las Olas, 7 to 10 at the Hard Rock in Hollywood, and 6 to 9 in Boca. You can see Rick's art, and I mean, I've been on the cruise, and I've been to. You did an opening at a Wentworth near my house in Jersey not too long ago.
No, Short Hills, right?
Short Hills, yeah. And I mean, you're great with these because you're great with the fans. They love seeing you. They can buy the art. They can talk to you about the art. I imagine you enjoy this. You enjoy not only being able to show off your art, but make that connection and be able to talk about it. And, you're so used to playing these big places with Leopard to be able to do stuff on a smaller scale and really get to connect with people. You're great at it. And I would think that it's something you enjoy, right?
I really do. And, when we do the meet and greets with Def Leppard, it's very brief, it's a handshake. It's, how's the weather, da, 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 it just seems too short. And then we do a couple of photographs, this, that, and the other. Whereas, in a more intimate setting, like an art gallery, I can actually get to talk to people. And I've actually developed some really nice relationships with, some of the people that come, some of the people that are second, third, fourth, fifth time buyers, So it's been really special for me to really get to know Def Leppard fans in a more personal way.
Yeah. Well, it's great stuff. And everybody check out Rick's art. Again, if you're in Florida. And if people aren't, we broadcast, of course, nationally. So people that are listening that aren't in South Florida and aren't able to make these dates, there's a way to buy and see your art online, I would imagine, as well. What's the best place to send everybody?
I think to go to wentworthgallery.com. And if you want to check out the pieces, you can go to rickallen.com. But I'm actually in negotiations with the gallery at the moment. And we'd mentioned, earlier about, getting out on the cruise. It would be fantastic to get out on the cruise again. But we're in negotiations for other galleries around the country. They've got galleries in DC area. They've got galleries in Atlanta. And you just mentioned Short Hills. They've got one in King of Prussia. And actually, they're starting to open up more and more galleries doing deals with the Hard Rock hotels. So getting galleries into casinos, which is kind of a cool way to get stuff out there, So
yeah.
If people can't get to Florida, I'm sure there's going to be an opportunity in the not too distant future where, they can get to come and say hello and maybe even buy a piece of art.
And last question, Rick, you've been doing this for a while, painting and doing this art. There's other guys in rock music that are starting to do this. I went to Michael Cardelloni, who's also a drummer from Skinner. He did one at Wentworth that I went to. There's been a few. Have you, do you know some of the... Paul Stanley does it. There's 2 or 3 other guys. Have you seen others that you've become fans of their work? Have you seen some that have really caught your eye that you like what they're doing?
Both of the people that we just mentioned, and getting involved with the gallery. I love. I know he's not a musician, but Peter Max. I love Peter Max's stuff. His use of color it's just stunning. Such vibrant colors. But there's a few people out there doing it now. It's
Brian Wheat. Brian Wheat was on. He was doing something where he was painting on photos. I don't know if you've seen that, but he was doing photography and painting over it or something.
Well, because of his relationship with Wentworth Gallery, also, myself and Brian, we got to spend quite a bit of time together. And when we do the cruises, basically what we do is we combine the art. So he'll bring stuff in, and it's given. I mean, you know, my relationship with Tesla. It's like, you know, they're brothers. You know,
Yeah.
so it was a no-brainer. You know, he was like, you know, do you mind if I bring some? I'm like, of course I don't. I mean, how long have I known you? You know,
Yeah.
so it's been great to see him, you know, doing something creative outside of the music.
Yeah, he wrote a book recently too. I just spent the weekend with Frank Hannon a couple weeks ago. We traveled through Oklahoma and Texas together. We did some appearances together. And I said to Frank, I said, have you read Brian's book yet? And he goes, no, I'm afraid to. I don't. I said, Frank, you're good. I said, don't worry about it. I read it. You're good. You can read it. You're safe. He goes, you sure? I said, yeah, you're good.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, the end of the supergroup. Yeah.
Exactly. So, well, listen, man, it's great to see you. And I guess the rest of the year for you is maybe some art, maybe a new Leopard song, and just seeing how the rest of the year unwinds, right?
I'll keep you posted. And
All right.
you know, if there's a chance for us to get together, let's do it.
Yeah, well, I hope to, you know, in normal times I come to LA every month for radio. So hopefully those will resume soon, and I'll definitely look you up. It'd be great to get together.
भूल न गई जान पियावा घर जाई के भूल न गई जान पियावा घर जाई के प्यार में तो हरे है प्यार में तो हरे हम जहर खाई के भूल न गई जान पियावा घर जाई के भूल न गई जान पियावा घर जाई के कैसे भूल पैगो जान बच